All right, let's look at pigeon pose, everyone's favorite pigeon pose. And we've looked at it when I was telling you my knee injury story. And by the way, I hope you understand now why I've taken so much time to explain how my lens got deeper and deeper and deeper over the years. And when we revisit it now, we'll have a way deeper lens than when we looked at it on our second day. And let me say that for people in the course, it's been so inspirational when I've heard so many of you say that you've gotten little clicks and kinks and niggles out of the hips. Because when I say we want to make injuries a thing of the past, some of those injuries aren't like going to emergency with a neck injury. We definitely want to get rid of those. But it's all these little things that people think they have to deal with, that really, if you have the proper application of tension and compression and the duo lines, that we can do a lot to solve that. And also, if you really get clear on what going around means, and most of the times we go around the duo lines, it means because we have made the wrong priority in the pose. All right, pigeon pose. Or, since I'm from Canada, I love to acknowledge my Quebecois friends and call it le pigeon. All right, so we'll start with right foot forward and break it down. First place I'd like to start here is a principle I haven't said yet. This is an important part at a really foundational level that I need you to get. And I want to say one more time, this course is not just for yoga teachers. My goal is for everyone who does yoga, for everyone who has a body and exists in gravity and wants to use that body. Okay. Do not line bones up with bones. Do not line bones up with walls or any other geometrical pattern. My big problem with the word alignment is it makes you think that you need to line things and stack things, but that's not it. It's the proper distribution of tension and compression. Okay, so where am I going with this? The cue I hate is to tell people to bring their shin, and it's especially true in double pigeon. Okay, I think it's more guilty of that, to bring the shin bones parallel to the front edge of the mat. Don't worry about that. First thing I want to tell you is that for pigeon pose, the most important thing is that we, and we talked about this on day 2, that we stabilize knees and we mobilize hips. Now, what does that mean exactly? I wish I could tell you. I wish I could spend even more time talking about it, but I'll make it super quick. You need to make sure that your shin bones, your fibula bone, doesn't go in or rotate outwards as your thigh bone rolls another way. In other words, you want to make sure that you don't do any like prying or torsion at this joint. So what I don't want to have happen is, for a lot of times in the poses, it's like we're holding the thigh bone in a vise and then prying on the shin bone. Or we're rotating the bone one way and another bone another way, which is how I got into trouble. That can show up really bad in the cartilage. That can show up in the ligaments, in the connective tissue, and the tendons. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Now, what I want to say is that your foot and your knee need to be one unit. Here's the point. If I am doing pigeon pose and I sink down too much, into the pose, it means that, again, this thigh is fixed, and then I'm pulling the shin bones up at this joint, which is how you would pry like a drumstick off a turkey. I'm again sorry for the vegetarians, but like we are meat. This outer body the yogis call the annamaya kosha, the food body. So it's just a real crude example of what can happen, this prying action at the knee joint. Okay, so how do we stabilize knees? By activating the feet. I haven't said it for a while yet, but toes before pose. So if I press the little toe side of the foot down, that activates my outer leg. If I press the big toe down in a way, that will activate my inner leg. Now, don't get confused. It's a little bit confusing because if I bring my shin bone more forward towards more parallel to the front, I will definitely get more stretch. However, what you got to get on this foot thing is that if you are less mobile, if you're more young, then you need to draw the heel more under. This is my left foot. I have to bring my left foot more under my right hip. But however, if I try and stay on the little toe of my left foot and do that, then it creates this horrible prying thing here at my knee. So I need to have more of the dorsal top of the foot there. Do you see it? So if I'm in here, I'm having more of the top of the foot on the floor, which is better knee and shin alignment. Again, the whole thing we're doing is just keeping this like I have a knee brace on. And that's just the way it is. Don't let that change. I mean, it might change a little tiny bit, but not too much, this shin bone angle and thigh bone. So I'm just keeping that happy. So the key rule is to stabilize knees and ankles and mobilize hips. So the foot activity is what provides that stability. So we build the pose up around stable ankles and knees. Now, let's take our left foot forward. That was just a little bit about knee safety because, as you know, this can be hard on the knees. Now, I need to lift up out of the pose. A lot of people get this little clinking in the left hip. We know that now. Don't let that happen. Go up, go up, go up. Stay stable. And then from your stable place, you know what to do. Start going back. We've done this in this experiment a couple days ago. Go back, go back, go back. If you're looser, your left and your right knee are going at the same time. Now, breathe in. If you want, by the way, you can stay back up here. You don't have to go forward. Deprioritize the chest on the floor. But if you do want to go forward, don't just go forward. Go up. Go forward and over, and then go back. And as you go back, don't just press your left hip back, but tilt your pelvis forward, turn your hip flexors on, tilt it forward. Steer with your hands. Take your right hand forward, your left hand out to the side, and steer with your hands. Your right hip has to go to the right, and you do that by pressing off your left hand off to the side, and I keep pressing back. And your hips don't have to be on the floor. Just breathe into that space. If it's too much, then I simply bring my right knee forward, and I lift up higher, and I find this place. I stay active with the feet, and we breathe into it. Now, there was a lot of talking there because we had to do it to break it down. But as we do the next side, what I would love to do is just experience it more. I'll talk a little bit less, and you can just really get the breath in there. Okay, so let's do it from a more embodied place and really let the breath be the priority. And also let the breath expand your dual lines. So take your right foot forward and customize the pose for you. Let your heel come more forward, and you're on the little toe side of the foot if you're a bit more open, and let the heel come under you, hips come up higher, which means, by the way, less hip flexion, which will be a relief for the muscles that want to extend the hip. Let me talk to that for one quick sec before we get into the body thing. See the release valve, when your nervous system is like, the release valve for most people is to let the hip come off to the side like this, which is easier on the nervous system, but then you miss the stretch. The release valve, the removal of pressure in the pose, should be taking your hips less into flexion, so lifting your hips up higher from the floor. And I don't care if you get a block, that's fine. But press back into the block. You just got to keep the backward press no matter what, which will make less pounds per square inch on your right knee anyway. Okay. Customize how low your hips go, how much flexion you have in your hips. Customize whether your shin is going more forward. I like to walk my right knee back. Activate your left or your right foot. Breathe in. Now my right hand's off to the right, left hand's forward. I breathe in. I go up, I go over and forward. I breathe in again, and then I start adding the back and the left with the pelvis. And then I let the breath expand me in my right hip. I breathe in deep, and I breathe out through an open mouth. And I always know if it's too much, I can back up out of it. And if I want more, I can go deeper into it if my body lets me in. Breathe in again. And breathe it out, open mouth. Now, if you really want something beautiful, you don't have to do this every time. Now we have our back body duo lines, so there's a tilt of the pelvis. I want you to bring your hands over towards the right. And then I want you to lift your right shoulder away from the right foot as you reach out through the crown. So in other words, you're doing the same twist that we did in our revolved triangle in the pose. Glide your right hip back, reach for the crown, breathe in, and breathe out. It's just a little bit different than this. It should go more into the lateral hip. Breathe in one more time, and breathe out. All right. And that is Le Pigeon for now.